The human body is made up of more than 37 trillion cells, 37 trillion. And scientists around the world are now on a mission to map every single one. This is an effort that could change our understanding of everything from aging to treating disease. With a closer look this morning is CTV science and technology specialist Dan Riskin. This is fascinating, Dan. They call this the Human Cell Atlas. How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, the basic question is, how do different cells work? What is their function? And like, we know that the cells of the liver have different jobs from the cells of the lungs, which are different from the cells of the stomach. Okay, that's fine. But what about within those organs? And so, you know, the cells might be right next to each other, but might have totally different functions. And you can't really understand function if you just look at the DNA, because every cell in the body has the same DNA. But different cells transcribe different pieces of the DNA into RNA. So one thing that we all unfortunately got to learn because of a pandemic is this stuff called RNA, which is basically what comes from DNA to make the proteins. It goes from DNA to RNA to protein. And different cells could be right next to each other, but they could be transcribing totally different RNA to make totally different proteins. And once you can understand which RNA is being produced by different cells, you can really understand what their function is. So you might be within the liver and have two cells next to each other and be able to see that they have totally different functions thanks to this kind of technology.
And just as a reminder to everybody, we'll go back to middle school science. Cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organ makes up parts of the body. I want to show a sample of a cell map here. This was created by biotech company Nanostring Technologies. So when I look at this, to me this looks like a Google map of the Earth. But
yeah.
What do scientists see when they look at this?
You know what, a Google map of the Earth is actually a really good metaphor for what we're talking about, because we've been sort of looking at satellite imagery, or the equivalent thereof, and what we're talking about doing now is getting boots on the ground and understanding the difference on the very ground level. And you know from playing with Google Maps that you could look at your neighborhood and it looks very different from the sky than it does when you're walking around. And so this is an image of a piece of tissue in the body with a bunch of cells, and the colors that you saw there are sort of highlighting different kinds of proteins that are coming out. And so with this technology, they can say, okay, here's a protein that's related to breaking down carbohydrates. That's produced by these cells. But look, these cells don't produce those proteins. They're doing something else. And so with those big satellite views and having the fine details, we can start to understand how a piece of tissue or an organ that looks like just one thing that has one job actually has a bunch of different jobs working in different places.
We started out by saying the human body has 37 trillion cells. The Human Cell Atlas has only accumulated data for 120 million of those so far, which really feels like a drop in the bucket. So how are they planning to map them all?
120 million is such a big number, but it is a 1/3000th of a percent of all the cells in the body. And not just that, it's not just one body, right? I mean, there are different ages, you have different ethnicities, you have different genders. There's all kinds of different things that are going to come into what makes the cells function. And then you layer on top of that what happens when there's disease and how does it vary. It's complex, and one of the biggest challenges here is not just reading the cells, but managing the data. And I think that's where artificial intelligence is going to really come into the game. Artificial intelligence is going to help doctors pick which cells to look at next to start to get a sample from across the body, and it's also going to help doctors understand what they're looking at when they put these data together. Because when you look at protein science, artificial intelligence absolutely leapfrogged where we were before. We understood 190,000. All of a sudden, we understood 200 million different proteins thanks to artificial intelligence. So we need that kind of a jump in technology to really get a grasp on this. But scientists are sort of working away and digging with their little shovels, waiting for the big artificial intelligence caterpillar to come in and dig the hole for them.
Okay, so really quick, about 30 seconds left, Dan, but what's the good of all of this? What does this provide us?
This gives us a much finer detailed picture of how the human body works when everything's going well, so that we can do a better job of fixing things when things are not working. So it's really going to give scientists a much deeper understanding of how the human body works, so we can prevent disease, treat disease, predict disease, and really understand the link between how we're built and how we work.
Fascinating science, as always. Dan, good to have you here. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.